This episode is made possible by New Masters Academy, the world's #1 online art school. Check the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Honey and Absinthe After Hours podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for animation.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and this is a podcast about all things art, business, and whatever we feel like.
Now today we're going to talk about nepotism in animation. More specifically, nepotism in the industry. Does it exist, Janet?
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go. End of podcast.
We'll be talking about that, and then a little bit later we'll talk about how to actually get hired in animation. But before we get into that, please make sure to like the podcast. It really does help, and I know a lot of you don't do it, and you're probably not doing it right now, but like the podcast.
It helps out.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
Nepotism in the industry. Now, how did this even? Well, first, let's define the word nepotism for people who don't know what that word is.
Yeah. So, you want to bring it up?
Yes. I have a phone, which is a modern marvel. And it says here, nepotism. See, that's how you pronounce it. Nepotism is the practice among those with power or influence of favoring relatives or friends, especially by giving them jobs.
That's basically Hollywood in a nutshell, isn't it?
Might as well call Hollywood just nepotism. Just a big nepotism sign at the
in the hills.
Yeah. Might as well.
The reason why we decided to talk about this is I had been on Twitter, as you guys know, last time. And it seemed like, again, it's like Twitter is a gift that keeps on giving. For some reason, people were talking about this. And I have no idea why it came up. But the reason why we haven't done an episode on this till now is we kind of thought it was obvious. But apparently not. And that is because, when I first I guess came out with my viral Disney video, I get, a lot of assumptions about me. But, a lot of the, I guess, criticism that people have is that, oh yeah, obviously Hollywood has nepotism. Obviously people hire their family and friends. Obviously it's like a place with a lot of gatekeepers and like it's impossible to get in. No one really knows how to get hired. And yet, when I was witnessing a lot of stuff that was going down, people criticizing each other or like, I don't know, canceling each other yet again, even though people say like they like to say like they know better, like they know obviously it exists, they act a different way when they actually see it. They like suddenly when people are talking about, oh my god, nepotism in Hollywood, why is this a thing? I thought you guys all told me you guys already know that this is a thing. Suddenly, when you actually see it, it's surprising. So I thought that was hilarious. That's why we're talking about it today. And we're going to go into, would we hire our family and friends in Hollywood? And the reasons for and against, and in a way why it happens, and how we feel about it, I guess.
Why do you think people think it's obvious, and why do you think people think it isn't obvious? Like, why do you think people fall in those two camps? Or why are they pretending to think in those two camps?
I think people think it's obvious because it's in movies. It's talked about in movies, and it's kind of a stereotype that Hollywood has. Like,
it's not it's not how good you are; it's who you know.
Yeah. Everyone knows that phrase.
Yeah, it's who you know.
Yeah, but they don't truly know that phrase, if you know what I mean. Like, they know of the phrase and they believe it exists, but when they see it, it's like they can't believe it. So I think people, at least for me, for example, I knew that Hollywood was like that in a way, but I guess when I saw it, I didn't think it would be as bad as it is portrayed in movies and TV shows and all those things, but it totally is, because it is fiction created from reality. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people seem to like know that it exists, but then are so shocked when they find out that it does exist?
I don't know. I felt like I've always known it exists, and why people are behaving like it doesn't exist or like it's new news to them is ridiculous to me.
I also think maybe it's because, you know, in the new age of social media, it's really easy to portray yourself as holier than thou and to make yourself seem a lot better than you are and not be truly honest. Like, you can make yourself out to be whoever you want to be. And I think people like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So when they see like their favorite artist or whoever, they like to think that they're good people.
I rarely give people like that the benefit of the doubt, though.
But that's the thing. It's like we all work in Hollywood. What do you think we are? When you think of people who work in Hollywood, you think we're like good people?
Yeah, so like I don't know or understand how to think that these people in Hollywood who I've watched, I love movies. I've talked about this in this podcast. I love movies ever since I was a kid. And like to think that these people who hold like big old fancy balls and galas and all this crazy stuff while postulating that they're great, virtuous people. Yeah. It's like how do you not know that these aren't the kind of people they're portraying themselves? They're actors. They're producers. They're professionals at making fantasy. Why do you think that they're, great, virtuous, kind, fantastic people? They could be great people. There could be really nice people. But like to behave online like these people who work on these big old productions have any ethical merit is ridiculous to me. And I don't understand that. I don't know where this culture came from. I kept telling you while we were doing the show notes for this podcast, I was like, I can't even empathize with the view of like why people think that Hollywood people are great, virtuous people who are of the people. Where in history have we seen that kind of behavior?
I really think it came about when social media became a thing.
Yeah, because people want to make themselves as like I don't even know what it's like to look at Tinder or whatever it is like that. But like, obviously when people have Facebook profiles, they make themselves look better than they already do. These are actors. These are professional fantasy creators. It's so easy to lie to people.
That's exactly why. It's because they say they are.
Yeah.
Online, on Twitter, on whatever.
Sorry for getting so heated, but like I don't understand. When anyone can generate whatever kind of fantasy they want to create in their professional career. What makes you think that what they're saying online isn't fantasy as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think for you, we were talking about how again, like we all grow up with like these movies and TV shows that portray Hollywood in a certain light, and we understand this idea that like it's not like what you know, it's who you know. But then I think to experience it is another thing. I think for me, I was kind of disgusted.
So what am I saying? Am I saying that I know Hollywood is bad and I participate in it? Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think you were like, when I discovered that Hollywood is exactly how it is portrayed, I wasn't
surprised.
Okay.
I wasn't surprised at all.
You're like,
am I surprised that friends hire friends? Am I surprised that siblings hire siblings? No. And why people are acting like it's a big fucking surprise online is a shock to me.
Yeah, it's like
where do you guys live under a rock? Do you think these people who make fantasy are out for your best interest? They want to make fantasy, so you forget about what's going on in the real world.
Yeah. I remember early on, I forgot when, maybe I was already hired by then, but someone told me there are a lot of therapists or psychiatrists, whatever, in LA that specialize in fixing egos.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they
funny that's lucrative in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Because apparently once you get any sort of fame or something similar to fame, and this applies to animation too. It's like just because we're artists doesn't mean we're immune to this. Yeah. They say a lot of times, like actors, for example, when they get their first role or whatever, suddenly they let it get to their heads, and then they completely change into a different person. Their ego goes through the roof, and they need something like a specialized therapist to help them fix themselves, or to help them fix that aspect of them, because you can see how that can affect you getting your next roles, or getting along with other people. And after I found out that exists very early on, I was like, man, people need that. But then as I worked more in the industry, I was like,
of course people need
it. I think some of these artists need that. Like,
so Janet, would you hire a sibling, your sibling in anime? Do you even have any siblings? When would you hire them in this industry?
Yeah, so I actually had to think about this a while ago, because there's a rule that we both have that we don't like to talk about close friends and family, because fame is not actually a good thing, especially for people who don't want it, any part of it. So
like Kurt Cobain.
Exactly. Or even just look at like Michael Jordan. So
private person.
Yeah. And I actually have a sister, and she also growing up, she also wanted to work in animation, and she currently does, but not in the United States. And she is very talented, and she got in on her own. And most people don't know that I have a sister until I bring it up.
I'm surprised. You don't make a big deal out of it,
No.
right?
And I remember telling her early on that since we both at that time, we hadn't, I don't even think I went to college yet. It was like that early on. I told her, because I'm older, if I get hired, I'm not going to recommend you. But for your benefit, because I don't want people to talk about you in that way. Like, I want people to just be like, you're your own person and I'm my own person. Like, I don't even want people to know that, like, I have a sibling. Because people do talk and people do assume things and people are vicious. And I think it affects the person being talked about like that really negatively. And not that I wouldn't help her in terms of like her skill or whatever. I remember like teaching her how to figure draw and like sharing the stuff I was learning while I was learning it with her. But that's why I wouldn't, because I know emotionally what that can do to a person, I think. I knew that if it were the other way around, like if I were the younger sibling and I had an older sibling who would recommend me, I would want that. I would want to make it on my own merit, and I wouldn't want anyone to ever ever have that opportunity to assume. So I told her that basically that's how it would go down. And most of you guys don't know that I have a sister, so but when
working in animation.
Yeah.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. But when we read the definition, I actually didn't realize that nepotism included friends. And that's kind of different, in my opinion. I would recommend friends because it's a little bit different than recommending family for some reason in my mind.
No, I think it's socially different too. It's different when you're asking somebody like, oh, he's my good friend, versus, oh, this is my sister.
Yeah.
But go on.
I think the reason why, for me, I would recommend a friend, but it would still come with a lot of standards. I would still have really high standards for whoever I'm deciding to hire or recommend, because it's my name, I'm vouching for someone, and if I first of all think I don't know much about like their behavior, or if they're just frankly not good enough, then I still wouldn't hire them. But yeah, like you said, it's kind of different when you're hiring like family, or even like my wife, my husband, whatever. It feels like on the other end, the recruiter or whoever you're like, let's say I'm like, oh, here's my sister to the recruiter, HR person, whatever. hire her. If if the recruiter that or HR person is that then has to like look at her work or whatever and then tell me that they didn't hire her, I think they would have this sense of obligation like they have to.
Right.
Because then in fears of offending me.
Yeah, so if I were to present my friend's portfolio and say, hey, my buddy's looking, I hope they can get into this project. The recruiter, whoever's looking at the work and decide, whoever's responsible for hiring will look at the work and then will always look, like, oh, is it up to the standard of the show and are they easy to work with and stuff like that. And of course, if that's the case, there's the added sugar on top that like this person has vouched for this person. Therefore, by virtue of their own reputation, they're saying that this person can hang in this project. Mm-hmm. When you're asking your sibling, let's say like your sister, it's almost like, oh, hey, person responsible for hiring, I am in this industry. My sister also works in this industry. I mean, my sister also knows how to draw. Can you get them into this industry too? And what are they going to say? No? What are they going to say? No, they're not good enough. Especially if you're really good, and especially if everybody knows you to be really good. Why are they going to say no to you? Are they stupid? Like, why are they like looking to like destroy their own career? Of course they're going to say yes. You're a big animation person. To say no to you is like, it's so easy for people with these big followings to like hurt and harass people. Like having a big following, as much as people want it, it's a huge responsibility. And it's a huge persuasion thing too. So if you're talking to a recruiter and they're like, oh, this person, I mean, I hope that this recruiter would think that like, oh, I hope that they're good enough.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't help shake the feeling of like, oh, like, what am I going to do? Say no to this person?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, yeah, it just feels weird. It feels, I can't explain it all that well, but there's definitely an air of obligation to whoever actually has the hiring. Like, imagine if like if I went to like a director and was like, hey, I have a family member, they're great. What is the director gonna do? Like, say no to me? And then like, yeah, it's just weird. It's just weird.
And then and then what? And then like you have lunch with this person and then, they look all upset because you didn't hire their sibling. It's like, of course you're gonna do what like, and what's the big, like, at what point is it like, that's not really a big deal?
Yeah.
This person, like, I know this person says that their sibling draws, and I know this person is hardworking, so I would hope the other person is hardworking. Well, then that saves me a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hire this person.
That and, like, I feel like especially with family, you don't have a really good lens when looking at them. Yeah. Versus like a friend. Oh yeah, don't worry, they'll grow as they work in the industry. Don't worry about it. I know they're not much now, but if you hire them, they'll shape up into the artists you think that they're gonna be. Yeah, even unless it's like your best friend from childhood or something. Even with a friend, you'll like, still, how do you know that? Yeah. It's like, unless I went to school with you, unless I've seen you for, let's say, a class for 14 weeks, show up and do the work or not. Like that's my. Like you said, it's different when I'm like if I'm, which I've done so many times, if I'm recommending someone, it's because I know what their work ethic is like. I know how bad they want this, and I know their training. That's the most important part to me, and that's why I would recommend like a friend or something like that. Now, if it were, I guess I'll talk about like, would I like so definitively, would you hire like your would you help your sibling and coerce people into hiring, getting this person to get hired? No. Yeah, okay. I wouldn't even really do that with a friend. Right. Yeah. I wouldn't either. Yeah. I just think that there's a lot more social pressure and societal pressure to when someone says, this is my sibling, this is my family, my blood, and then you say, this person needs work, the other person kind of like socially feels obligated to meet you halfway at least. Yeah, it's a simple like persuasion influence thing.
Yeah.
So it's human nature.
Yeah.
And you know, there's
Like family. Oh, you're picking family. Oh, I've seen Fast and Furious recently. Like, of course, family is really, really important.
family.
Yeah.
Drink every time you hear that word. Nepotism exists for a reason, and
Right.
it exists in any kind of corporation, any kind of business, really. And there is kind of a function for it, but I think for it to be labeled nepotism, it needs to be pretty bad.
Yeah, it needs to be like blatant. Like this
Yeah.
person. There's somebody who would have been so much more qualified to get this job.
Yeah.
And then out of nepotism, this other person got hired.
Yeah. But the mere act of hiring your friend, that's kind of a thing that just
That
is
happens a lot
practical.
here. And to, so if I were to be an art director, I
Mhm.
already know who my favorite prop designers are.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with so many really talented ones, and my
Mhm.
friends, like I want to hire this person, I want to hire this color person because I know they're really great, and I know
Mhm.
they show up, and I know they turn in their work on time, and I want to hire this background BG design person, I want to hire this character design person. And it's because like I know these people, I know their training, and truth be told, it would, like, in my personal head, in my fantasy, to have all of my friends working together in one show, I don't know, to me equals like a really badass show. The thing is, though, it's like that sucks, though,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah.
I want to hire all my friends, but out of necessity and almost out of like
Laziness,
for the sake
almost?
of for the sake of the project. That like I want to make my project as best as it can, so I know the people who I would want to hire.
Mhm.
The other thing is, though, too, is like I would like somebody new to like test themselves, or like I would love to hire new people, but at the same time, hiring new people means I have to train them up. It means like I'm more responsible to make sure that they're performing at the proper, I don't know, level,
Yeah.
which is fine. It's just like obviously more work for me, and that's what I'm getting paid to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, of course, for the sake of ease, I can't help but think like prop designer. Oh, I know the perfect person.
Yeah.
Color. I know the perfect person.
Yeah.
Oh, background design. I know the perfect people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's definitely harder to hire
Yeah.
a stranger.
it's so much harder.
yeah.
And it's like, of course, like as much as nepotism is a bad and ugly thing, if you have a project that you love so much, it's almost like, why wouldn't you hire the people that you love and that would do a good job?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's one of those things where like I wouldn't have been where I'm at if someone didn't take a chance on me.
Yeah.
So I would love to take a chance on other people. I just know it would require more from me. So if I'm already thinking like, oh, I want to hire a new person, but it would require a lot from me, but I'm willing to do it. What do you think other people in Hollywood are thinking? What do you think they're thinking? They're probably thinking, fuck no, we're going to like train up somebody. We're going to hire somebody who already knows how to do the fucking job.
Yeah, and they're like, this is a business.
Which is
You're
why
costing me money.
Which is why all the best art schools teach you how to perform so that they plug you in and you're ready to go.
Yeah, as best as they can.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. I'm really passionate about this because it's like, man, like picking and choosing a team is
hard.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's that's why I think like it's practical. Like, I remember we were talking about this before. It's kind of like forming a band.
Yeah. It's like forming a
And
band.
if like a friend that can play bass or can play drums and they're your friend, it's easier than like having like auditions.
Right. Which can take weeks and weeks, and then like you introduce this new person into the band dynamic and you're not sure if they're going to hang or if they're they're not going to gel with the rest of the team. And that's just life. That's just
Yeah.
like, social stuff. And at times, of course, like I can't think, like there are certain positions where I'm like, I do want to see if somebody out there who recent graduate can like, do and perform. But my first instinct is to like immediately think of my friends. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's bad.
Yeah, and that's typically what happens. That's why the website application process doesn't work. If it just doesn't work. It's kind of broken because like what most people do, like let's say you rise to the ranks, you become a director or art director, you're on a new show and you need to form a team, the first people you think of are like, okay, who have I worked with before who can do the job? And you think about these people. And then if you're truly honest with yourself, you go, well, this friend of mine might not be best for the job.
Yeah.
So
is my personal feelings and my desire to like think, oh, wouldn't it be a great party to hang out with my friend who I love so much, cloud my judgment in terms of like what's best for the project.
Yeah.
Right?
So what you should do when you have that feeling is to be like, well, probably not hire my friend because they're not necessarily fit for this. They might not do a good job. So what's the next step? It's not go to the website, actually. It's to go to the other people, your friends, and ask them, hey, do you know anyone?
Anybody who's looking. And which those DMs I've had multitude of times. Multitude of times.
So like friends hire friends who hire friends who hire friends. Like, and then if they also don't give you any recommendations that are worth anything, then you have something
then we go to the application.
Yeah. Or you have something like tests. You go to like the recruiters, has anyone reached out to you with email? And then you have to go through the whole testing process. You have to look through all these tests and you have to go through the time of picking someone out. And then you have to make a decision, which people have a really hard time with because...
Especially artistic people.
Yeah. Because they're like, oh, am I making the right decision? And then you have analysis paralysis. And you wonder, like, if I hire them, it'll be that much harder to fire them. So they better be good. So it's just so much easier to hire a friend. And even then, they will rather go to the recruiter rather than the website or social media or whatever. So as I've been growing the business, I've been thinking a lot about the 4-hour work week again. And this is an audiobook that I had read very early on at the very beginning of this podcast. And if you want to read it too or listen to it, go to audibletrial.com for a free Audible trial where you get 1 free audiobook and 2 free Audible original audiobooks. Completely for free on us, and anything, if you decide to sign up, it helps this podcast out at no extra cost to you. And I've basically been thinking about how the 4-hour work week had helped me figure out how to quit my job and then now how to scale my business. So if you want any of that goodness, head to audibletrial.com/the Honey and Absinthe podcast. So that's why. But on the other hand, it is actually really easy to be like, I have a friend who can kind of do the job, and then hire them, and then they're kind of completely not fit for the job, and that's when crews are kind of dysfunctional.
Right. They just deal with each other.
Yeah, and each other's, or, there are so many crews where, the bottom people commiserate together about how much they hate a certain higher up, let's just say, because they're just really bad at their job. They don't know how they got they know how they got hired. But there's nothing you can do because when a friend hired their friend who's doing a really poor job and you work under them, there's nothing you can do. You just gotta deal with it.
Right. Or what, tell them, you're not fit for the job and then ruin the other relationship you had with the person who recommended that person. It just turns into a whole ball of just like yarn that's not fun.
Yeah, because you can't even complain.
Yeah, I can't.
To the upper person because you're like, they're friends though.
Yeah.
So like if I complain about my boss to their boss who hired...
My boss is going to hate me. Yeah. Exactly.
My boss's boss is going to hate me. Yeah. So, Vincent.
Yeah.
Would you hire your family or friends?
Of course. Why not? Everybody's doing it. Why the hell should I not? What do you think? What do you guys think we are in Hollywood? Saints? That we're like out for the virtue of like making sure we look for the top talent? No, we're thinking about the bottom line. We're thinking about like, how do we make this show great? Let's hire the best people that I know. I mean, like, I don't know. At the same time, it's like, yeah, that kind of sucks because all these people who are investing so much money on these art colleges aren't getting a fair shake to get into the industry. That sucks. Yeah. But what do I want? A good show or to give somebody a chance?
or your family or friend to have money to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah, of course.
At least
of
give them
course.
that.
It's like at the same time, like it's like of course. Why do you think people make movies like The Player or Get Shorty or The Network? You know, they all made these movies because out of catharsis for how much, you know, they chagrin the industry that they work for. Like this isn't that we're like, I don't know how people are portraying themselves on Twitter, especially, but to think that we're great, virtuous people, which a lot of us try to be. Yes.
We're trying to be normal.
Sure. But is anybody calling anybody out for nepotism? No.
Yeah.
So what makes you think I'm supposed to care?
You're
So
like,
of
if I'm gonna play
course
the
I'm
game.
going to hire my brother. I have a brother. Of course I'm going to hire my brother. And will he feel bad? I don't really think so, because he's the one making the money. He's the one working for the big industry. You know, like I know it's ugly and I know it's gross, but it's like, what do you think this is?
Yeah.
Like what, like the people who chagrined you for like, oh, you're so naive. It's like that's what I mean. It's like, what do you think this is? This isn't some charity. Hollywood is not a charity. It is a place where people create fantasy. Remember that, everybody. So when people tout how much they're industry people, remember, they're fantasy generators. What do you think they do? Now, why do you think I should be a great, virtuous person and not hire my brother? Why? Because I want to be like, why would I do that? Like, what do I get out of that? Nothing.
Yeah. You're like,
What do I get out of hiring my brother? We get to hang out and eat during lunch and then just talk shit or whatever it is.
yeah.
Like, what do you think this is?
Yeah, because like if everyone's playing that game, then
Why
you
should
might-
I not?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're the weirdo who's not playing the game. And that's why everybody's just probably really happy that you left animation.
Yeah. Like, God, thank God.
People aren't happy that you're like, you know, you're the magician tearing down the curtain and showing people how the magic is made. And, you know, the ugliness behind that, sure. But the people are really happy that they don't have another extra person to compete with.
Yeah.
And this is the industry we're talking about.
Yeah. I think it's one thing to like observe it and to know it and to whatever, and another thing to be in it and to see it happen.
Yeah, and at the same time, if you were the one with like who helms the project, like, and you know people who you know would like really kill it at this job, why wouldn't you go out of your way to hire them?
Yeah. I think for me, when you brought up that point, I was like, yeah, that's true. If like I'm the only one with morals and principles, and what good does that do?
What good does it do you?
Yeah.
Look at all the good that it's done you. Like, I'm still hired. I still work in the industry, and it's in my perspective, I'm having a great time. But if you look at what you're actually doing and the fact that you're calling your own shots and that you're making your own fortune by by the skin of your own teeth, or like just by your own by your own will, that's incredible.
Yeah.
But would I get my brother into the animation industry because I can? Of course I would. Of course I would. Why not?
Yeah, my morals and my principles.
And it's like, none of you can even get angry with me because you've seen it before. You've seen somebody do it. In fact, you've probably done it yourself.
I think to at least say that you've never thought about it.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
If you're in the industry, yeah.
So like the reason why I'm so passionate is because like this is as obvious as the air we breathe. This is ridiculous, and it's just like I know this is going to be a short podcast because this is a ridiculous fucking topic.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Yeah.
Especially like once you're in it, like like everything that I said in my my video, what people don't understand is it was for a very specific audience. And when people tell me, especially like other industry people who are like, oh, this is obvious or whatever, like, well, yeah, duh, you're in it. I'm not talking to you.
No.
I'm talking to like young naive Janet.
I really don't know where this new culture of internet people who think and worship all these, industry professionals think that they're like the greatest, most virtuous people who would never hire their friend. They would never. Ever since I've observed the people in Hollywood, because I lived in Hollywood, people here are self-serving people. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you look up to them, you think they're like great and amazing and whatever. You think, oh, they would totally notice me one day.
No, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. The people in Hollywood will hire you because someday they're gonna get you to hire them back.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think this is?
That's actually how it works. So when you brought that up, I was like, that's true. Like, if everyone's playing the game, why should I be the
Not play.
Yeah. Why should I be the principled, moral person and have make it harder for myself, which is just something I tend to do to myself all the time. I just make it harder for, like, I could have just stayed. I could have just shut my mouth and ate the shit, is what we call it. Ate the shit in Hollywood and just did the thing and got paid.
Yeah.
And it's because I need the only justifiable reason that I can counter that is I need to be able to sleep at night. If I had done that, or if I had, played the game in the way that people want me to play the game and to just suck it up and deal with all the things that everyone else has to deal with, I would just be really upset with myself. I'd hate everything. I'd hate myself. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I'd just be really, really, like, more unhappy than I already was. Trying my hardest to just, like, get by, like, seeing all the awful things that were happening and things I didn't agree with, and in general, just like, this wasn't the place for me. On top of that, if I had also played the game and I don't know, just participated in all that toxic behavior, I would have just been like I would have sold out, if that's what you want to call it or whatever. I would have just like, well, I'm not me anymore. Hollywood has changed me. But yeah, that's the only counter. To be fair, I think social media really messes with people's perceptions of these people. It's kind of like celebrity actors. There are a lot of people who confuse the actor's character in a movie with who they actually are. And I think it's actually easier with actors because I think most people know that they're just acting. But I have seen, like, people think a certain actor is that character and they want them to behave that way, and then when they see them walking around LA, they expect a certain thing or
get a
whatever.
Completely different result.
Yeah. But I think that's why a lot of actors, they're private, a lot of them, or like you can see interviews with them when they're completely different or they look completely different than they do on screen. So you at least understand that. I think with social media, people portray themselves like a certain way, and then people assume that that's exactly how they are. And I even like see that with us or me, since I'm mostly on camera. Like, people will assume things, good and bad, about me. And they always say, like, never meet your heroes. And I'm always thinking about, like, if I ever meet someone who's like super like big fan of our channel or whatever, I'm always like, I think I'm gonna disappoint a lot of people. Like, I don't know, I'm different. I can't possibly be what people make me out to be in their heads because of what they see on camera. Yeah, and I see that, and I see, like, the younger version of myself who, I mean, it's so easy to idolize people on social media. Even when you think you're smarter than that and that you don't do that, I think it's easy.
There's a little bit of that,
yeah.
I think, in everybody.
Yeah.
Especially with the internet, as you can see who your favorite person is and what they're up to. Literally sometimes, especially on Twitter, like what they're thinking, Yeah.
Yeah. Or what they want you to think they're thinking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What their publicist thinks.
Yeah, or what they want their friends to think of them. So let's talk about how to actually get hired in animation or Hollywood.
In the industry, as they say.
Yeah.
As all the people on Twitter love to say.
Yeah. The industry. Whatever. So to be honest, there is a baseline of skill that you need to have, at least in animation. But in my opinion, that baseline is actually pretty low. It's not what you see in the art of books. It's not even really what you see online because, people post their best work online. I've seen a lot of questionable people hired. And, you know, the work at a certain point on certain productions, especially in TV animation, good enough is good enough. And there's no real... That's what kind of upset me a lot, being such a perfectionist, is I always thought everyone would try their hardest to be better. Right. To do the best work they could bring their best selves to work.
Right, but in a previous podcast, we talked about, I think it's the Hollywood Kool-Aid. Check out that episode, Hollywood Kool-Aid episode, about how there's a lot of fluff. Yeah, so like, for example, I don't even know how many people watch a lot of those like streaming shows that like DreamWorks TV, for example, makes a lot of those, because it seems like fluff. And what I mean by that is, like, at a certain point, some of these shows seem like they were made just to expand the catalog.
Yeah. And it's not about quality. It's about just existing. Yeah. Just put it out there. Make it look like we have a big catalog on Netflix or whatever. And if it looks that way, it's definitely being run that way. And, you know, I've seen, and too, like, there are a lot of jaded people in animation. People who are like me, who are very upset.
People who are like you, but who have stayed.
Yeah, who decided to stay, yeah. And I didn't want to be like them, because their work shows that they don't care anymore. Like, they once did, but not anymore. Like, they don't think the industry, the show they're working on, any of this matters, because they know it doesn't. They know, like, this is just a job, this just pays the bills, and you know how heartbreaking that is to someone who decided to make a living with their passion to end up there. Because you know in their heart...
Because, you know, you wanted to do this in the first place to follow something you really cared about.
Yeah.
And to get pigeonholed into something that you don't really care about, then what was the whole point of doing it in the first place?
Yeah. And I think a lot of them are like at an age or just resigned to it. They're like, it is what it is. Like that's what a lot of people have told me, like trying to like shit on me, I guess. But they're like, it is what it is. What do you want to do? Not work in it? I have that choice, you know. I don't have to like be like you. I don't have to just eat the shit. The baseline, honestly, is not that high. And I think most people who are they want to work in animation or in Hollywood, they will never know that, because it's something you can only know by
when
working.
You're in it. Yeah.
By seeing your peers and seeing the kind of work that comes out, and a lot of it is just passable. It's just fine. I wish it was easier for all these people to go and do their own thing, so that there wasn't like these big corporations that dominated everything. Like, I wish it was more small. Like, I wish there were a lot of smaller animation studios out there. Maybe I would have stayed in one of them or whatever, instead of like, it's basically, even the smaller animation studios make stuff for the bigger ones.
Right.
I wish working in animation, or the perception of what it is to work in Hollywood, was more like it was back in our teachers' age of illustration, where most artists, like quote-unquote artists, worked in advertising, and they did these amazing illustrations, and they were very like lauded for that. And then once print media started to go away more and more, especially these days, a lot of them transitioned from being like these famous illustrators because they were being replaced by photography. Like just look at the old illustrations on like Harper's Bazaar or like Vogue. Like those were all illustrated at a certain point. And then they switched over to celebrity photography. And then those illustrators, they went where the money went. And it was Hollywood. It was animation. It was all these things. And people who couldn't keep careers, they weren't famous enough as illustrators to stay being illustrators, and they had to like go do animation. They were made fun of.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a cool, popular thing to do because it was like, oh, you're working for the mouse. You're working. And so the perception of what it was to work in Hollywood, especially in animation, it wasn't like a popular thing. It, like, I think that was like a realistic view of what it was to work in animation back then. Now, especially with how Disney and DreamWorks and all these studios have branded themselves as, and how they the rise of social media, and how it feels like people who work for these companies feel like they're promoting these companies in their own free time because they get some kind of social currency from it. It's made the younger generation and people like me assume things like things that should not be assumed about what it is to work in animation. Me being someone who wanted to, like, you know, make a difference and like bring my all to work, and I being surrounded by more and more people who were just getting by. Work was just passable. If anything, they hated it and would openly say that they do not want to be there. But, you know, what can you do? You have a family, you have kids, you've been in this industry for decades. You can't leave, or it feels like you can't. And so and you know, once you start working, your skills suffer.
Yeah. Unless
you go out of your way to work on personal projects or to keep your skills up, because the work you do when you are working is not, for the most part, going to help you improve, and it's not really like, even like when you at your best, you're not really doing that on an average day at work. You're doing like very boring tasks or whatever. So like, I've seen a lot of our friends and people we know of, famous Instagram artists or whatever, who work in the industry. You can kind of tell that, like, after 2 years or so working consistently,
not so good anymore.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between someone who had continued to work on their craft versus someone who had a really cushy job and just went home and paid the bills. And I felt that happening to me. I definitely have brought my skills back up and continue to try to get back to a place where I feel like I was.
You're proud of the work.
Yeah. But, you know, that's a really big reason why I left, because I felt like not only do I hate it there, and I really felt like it was just not the industry for me, my work was suffering because like 8 hours of my day was spent hating my life and doing work that was not helping me get better. And then the rest of the time was just trying to get over my 8 hours of suffering. There is like a standard in animation that you have to hit in order to get hired. The standard's not that high. So let's talk about all the other things that no one ever talks about what you need to get hired. What do you need to get hired?
Connections. You need to be well connected.
You need a friend.
Yeah.
Or friends. You need people who are already working in whatever studio that you want to work at. And that's not to say that it's impossible if you don't have friends. You just need to make them. Yeah, it wasn't like I applied to the website and I got hired. That's not what happened.
I don't know anybody who got hired like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's like unheard of.
In fact, people said that was crazy for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I technically did have
What did
friends.
they say at DreamWorks?
They're like, oh, you're the only one. You applied to that works? The website works? That's what they said.
So when somebody says apply to the website for any studio, what they're essentially saying is, I don't want you to get a job, so I'm going to tell you bullshit so you don't get the job.
Yeah, they're blowing you off.
Right.
Which people have done to me, and you know,
countless times.
Yeah. Applying to the website, you might get into the system, which, like, how I got to Disney, funny story. Like, I knew the recruiter who used to be the recruiter at DreamWorks, and I had to test. I had to be good enough. and they had to like my work, and I had to be a good fit for the show. But at the end of the day, the only reason why I got my foot in the door at Disney was because I knew the recruiter. And she after I had already gotten an email back saying that they want to hire me, then they told me to apply on the website because I need to be in the system. That was hilarious to me. I was like, wait, but you already gave me the job. Why do I have to? Okay.
Because they need to make it look like the website works.
Yeah. And what I mean by like you need friends, plural, is if specifically like it's not just you need a friend. You need to know a friend who is on a crew or on a show that you know they told you has an opening, and it'd be best if you knew several people on that particular show to vouch for you.
Also, are you cool? You're cool, right?
Yeah.
You think the same way we do, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally.
Oh, okay. Oh, you could totally hang with us. You could totally hang with us.
I will parrot whatever you say.
Oh, you're fantastic. I'm vouching for this person. This person has really, really, really good work.
I will never disagree with you.
Oh, you better not.
Because I got you your job.
No, because I will fucking blacklist you.
Oh, okay.
And you will never work in this town, this small town, ever again.
Okay. Usually, if you know more than one person on a show that you know has an opening because they all told you there's an opening, you most likely will get that job.
Yeah, you will.
Most of you are probably like, okay, so does that mean I just can't get in the industry if I don't know anyone?
Yes.
Kind of.
No, yes. Yes.
That's why people move here. That's why people, like, you know, wherever you go to school, wherever in the country, sometimes from another country, they'll move here to LA, specifically Glendale, Burbank, and they'll in order to make friends so they can get in the industry. It's
right. And the worst part is like they never hang out with anybody outside of the friend group that could help them get jobs or work in the industry because they're so desperate to get those jobs.
And so what do? First, you kind of have to be in LA. It's not like across the board. The people who I know who were like from another country or like out of state who got jobs here, they knew someone who lived here who could vouch for them, and then they moved here. For the most part, if you don't know anyone and you're really like you have absolutely zero friends or connections or any like degrees of separation from anyone in LA, you most of the time you kind of have to move here. And if you want the job that badly. So once you're here, you still know, it's not like you come here and you magically
you're good.
Yeah.
No.
So my recommendation usually, and this is what I've seen other people who came here with no connections, how they ended up getting hired. They took classes taught by people who work in the industry. And the only reason why I know a lot of people take these classes is because they want to make friends with the teacher. They want to make friends with the other people in the class who might also be industry people.
Oh, look at that. The class is designed with nepotism in mind.
Oh, yes. Because there are certain classes that in LA, the teachers who teach hand select people to hire in their classes.
Hollywood, everybody.
Yes. It's a known thing. And so people will take those classes in hopes to like kiss up to the teacher or to make industry friends. People who are, again, trying to further their skills outside of work, because that's what you have to do to just be, to stay proficient. And so they'll make friends with these industry people, and they'll hopefully, after like a lot, and this is like not just making a connection. This isn't like, oh, I met you one day and I'm gonna ask you for a job. No, this is like a slow con, as you would say. You
the
like,
best cons are slow. Yeah, that's right.
You take them out to lunch, and then you like chit chat with them every single day.
Oh, that's your favorite movie? It's mine too. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you like that movie. And what? You like that restaurant? I've been going there ever since I was a kid. See how easy it is? Yeah. See how easy it is to just say what you want to hear? Even in person, what do you think these people are doing online?
Oh, it's so easy for you. It's not easy at all.
And you think these
for
people
me.
aren't like me? The best ones in the industry are better than me at this.
That's true. That's true. Some people I'm like genuinely scared of because I'm like, I don't know who you actually are.
Because you will never know what they actually think or feel. I never know what the higher ups in animation or anybody in the industry think or feel.
Yeah.
God.
I'm like, you scare me. I can't see through your mask at all. But yeah, so one way is to take classes in LA. And then another way, which is kind of how I got hired, is to make friends, develop a relationship with recruiters. And this takes probably the most time. I did it like the hardest way possible, where how I like met recruiters was through like a lot of different things. It was through like asking friends who were already hired if they knew anyone I could contact to like emails, and I'd email like line producers, I'd email HR people, I'd email recruiters, and you know their job, they're kind of like the gatekeepers to keep you not in
the industry.
Yeah,
any industry.
They sort through people who are just not good enough, or like they don't know you. They don't know if you're a weirdo or a crazy person. So that's why it kind of takes the longest, because they are trying to make sure they're not hiring a crazy person. Also, this is something I found out because I'm a weirdo and I read handbooks, like the entirety of a hand. Most people just like sign whatever. A lot of these recruiters, they get bonuses for hiring people. So if you are phenomenal and you can prove to them somehow that you are not a crazy person, they'll most likely like vouch for you. But at the end of the day, you know, they're not the ones hiring. It's up to art directors and line producers and showrunners and all that kind of stuff. There's a process. Like they're still kind of like a middleman, but if you behave in a certain way and you present yourself in a certain way to them, you have a slightly higher chance to at least get your foot in the door. And for me, it took about 1.5 years of developing this relationship, of like constantly keeping up with them in emails. And because like these recruiters, they get so many emails, they're just going to forget about you. And even if you are good, there are plenty of good people out there. They're just going to forget about you. So I had to send emails all the time and constantly update my portfolio. And like, and it took, I don't think I actually got hired until I met the recruiter that hired me at DreamWorks in person. And this was at CTN. And it was because she remembered me, because at that point, I probably had been emailing her back and forth for like a year. She saw my name, and I was already like almost hired so many times. I was like I tested a lot already, and a lot of directors almost hired me. So there were a lot of near misses. Like she knew that I was potentially a bonus for her. So and then she introduced herself to me. She's like, "Oh, you're Janet, right? We've been talking a lot." So to say that I applied to the website isn't, and then I got hired, isn't really true.
I think it's really when we both discover that these recruiters get a fat bonus because they discovered new talent or whatever it is. It helped a lot. It helped reframe my mind in the sense that like I have to just be presentable, and I have to appear beneficial to this entire project and to this studio or company, that like I'm worth this, whatever it is that they're expecting from me. So when it was about that, it was all about like, oh, okay, so what is it they do? I need to look like I fit in this studio with them. And I think it's like when I started to really think about that, it became more like, instead of, oh, I just need to, be chummy and buddy with everybody, it just became more specific to like, oh, how do I make myself look like I'm a good fit for this studio? Same thing as if you were to say like, you don't want to sound like a metal band, you don't want to sound like a metal guitarist for a blues band. Like, how do I make myself look as appealing to this band as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And when I started to do that, I was like, oh, that takes a lot of pressure out of my mind, because it's a lot of like guesswork that I don't need to like think about.
Yeah. And if all of this sounds like a lot of hoops to jump through, it is.
It is.
It is.
This is what the game is.
Yeah.
If you don't want any hoops to jump through, be an independent artist.
Yeah.
You design the hoops yourself. Like, look at
Yeah.
you. You're designing your own hoops.
Yeah. It's like, I guess I didn't think about it as I was like pursuing it so hard and like really desperate to get hired, but it's training you to conform.
Yes.
To be a conformist, to obey, to be exactly who they want you to be.
And if you enjoy making money and living a cushy life, there's nothing wrong with that.
And I thought that's what I wanted. I thought, like, you know, I knew it was a job. I thought that, like, money would be great because, again, like, I tend to like stability, being a woman and being just just scared out of my mind that I might not have enough to feed myself one day. But I don't know. Once you've made money for a few years and you know that you will do what you have the willpower to do whatever it takes to not starve. That's kind of, you realize it's an irrational fear and there are much more important things. But I was there too. I was like, oh, cushy job. I can deal with it. I think developing a relationship with a recruiter is probably like the longest way, the one that takes the most time in order to get hired. And then there is one that I want to talk about just briefly because it makes everyone uncomfortable.
Cool.
Including myself. But there are a lot of, let's say, single simping men out there.
You can't depend on anything more than a man's hunger for a woman.
Yes. And I know this is really uncomfortable, unpopular, and just, I don't know, disgusting. But to pretend like it doesn't exist would
Naive.
be, yeah.
Which is what they call you all the time.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a way. Should I say this? I've seen it happen. Let's just say I've just seen it happen and it's really effective and it works. That's a way.
Let's see what happened. Be as unambiguous as you can.
It doesn't even matter if they're single. I just realized in my head. Because I've seen it happen with married men too. Oh my god. But yeah, I mean, if you look presentable and you're not afraid of flirting, it's a way.
Yeah.
This was this episode of the Honey and Absinthe podcast. If you like what we do, make sure to like, subscribe, jingle, touch, stroke, all our bells and buttons. It really does help the channel out. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, which is where we make the bulk of our money. I am currently wearing
the brand new Hustle shirt. Yeah.
So I don't know if this will be up on the store when this comes out, but this is coming soon to the store. So check out honeyandabsinthe.com. Anything that you buy from our store helps this channel out. Share this podcast. Show people how you like to waste your time. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.